I just am so convicted to the core of my bones that if every single person really understood how loved they are by Jesus unconditionally, and as follows, how Jesus loves every single other person in the world just because of their own existence, then our world would be so different.
If you could say something to 8th grade Eliza, what would you say to her?
I would tell her that her dreams are going to come true someday. I just had a little flashback to 4th grade Eliza. I played therapy at recess. That's what I was up to. Blessed Franz Jägerstätter, I think. I'm obsessed with his story. He was an Austrian farmer in rural middle of nowhere, Austria, in the 1930s. He was the only person in his town to vote against it, but they actually scrubbed his vote from history. So many people were like, you're not going to change the course of the war just by talking against it and refusing the draft. But he knew it was enough that God saw. He knew it was enough just to be one person to just stand up and be counted, even if he changed nobody's mind. And he didn't change anyone's mind.
Hi, cute girl. How are you? I love your necklace.
Thank you. These are all the rage in Charleston.
Yes, the charm necklaces, they're here too. Mine just broke, but yours is really pretty.
Thank you. I just want to tell you about it.
Tell me all about it.
The Camargue cross. It's an anchor with a little cross and a heart for faith, hope, love. It's just 2 little hearts, and my sister and my mom have it too, with a little bow on top.
I love that.
This oyster Will got for me for my birthday, and it opens up and there's a little pearl inside.
No.
You can put a little note in it too. And then it's kind of, so our South Carolina state flag is a palmetto tree with the crescent moon. So this is like kind of a stylized version of that. And then this is another little box that I got for Christmas that you can open up. I don't have anything in it right now though. And then this is Mary Magdalene.
So is this a company like this, or are you got a chain and you're just adding the charms that, you know what I mean? Like adding on your own kind of a thing?
Yeah. So I think it started in Charleston, which is why I said it's really rage in Charleston, because this jewelry company named Hart Hagerty, and she's a Charlestonian, she started like doing the charm necklaces, and later I started seeing them everywhere else, like in Anthropology and at Target. Yeah, and I was at Walmart the other day and they had a charm necklace for sale at Walmart too. Yeah. But not all of these are like this one and this one, Mary Magdalene, are from south of France when Will and I went last year. But gotcha. The rest of these are all from that company.
From the company. Okay, I see. That's really smart that I love that you did that. You made, which, can I just be honest, Eliza, that's so you, of taking your faith and then also taking something that means a lot to you, like something that you're passionate about, and putting them together. That's you on the necklace. I love it.
Thanks.
Yeah. So when you started, Eliza writes, you and I, we just have met each other. We're kind of new friends to each other. And you started by blogging, is that right? Or am I getting that wrong? I mean, because you're young, so I can't imagine that you had a blog, because you probably weren't even born when blogs were invented. But we used to have a thing called a blog.
I had a blog in 8th grade. It was called Eliza Kate Style Base, and it's still on the internet. And
that's precious.
The background was a Lilly Pulitzer pattern.
Oh my gosh.
And I picked the pattern they had at that time of lobsters, which is funny because I had never eaten a lobster in my life. And like, we don't have them here. And I look at my sister and I will go look at it and just laugh. Like I made a blog where it was like outfits inspired by what Demi Lovato wore for one of her music videos.
Yes.
And
love Demi.
Lilly Pulitzer passed away. The woman passed away that year. And I made a post where it was like, best of Lilly Pulitzer, parentheses, in honor of her death. And I'm like, oh my goodness. I
even back then, you were on
really
top
bad
of
at
it.
painting my nails. Like, I would get my nail polish on my skin all the time, but that did not stop me from like taking a little manicure picture and being like, here are my watermelon nails, including the nail polish that's like circling the nail bed on the skin of my finger.
You're
I was
like,
shameless.
nice.
Yeah, so I did blog.
I love
like
it.
15 years ago.
I was gonna say, so last summer when you were in 8th grade, no, you're everybody's 12 to me.
That was what I was up to in 2013. That I started Eliza Writes Things the summer before my senior year of college. So this was 2020. And back then I was studying English and creative writing. I was really interested in writing poetry. And I would all I would do is I would write a poem in Google Docs. I would screenshot it and I would post it. And I was kind of doing that on purpose. I was like, ooh, it's a little edgy. And then after a few months, I started doing the more Instagram bloggery type thing of here's a nice picture of myself that my friend took, and here's a nice reflection caption. And Mackenzie and I discovered this recently. We have been following each other for a very long time. Before Mackenzie Hunter and I became friends, like really, really friends, when we got to meet in Rome last summer at the Vatican's Catholic Influencer Jubilee. But we had been following each other for years since then. But I had been following her personal account before that, so she was one of my original inspos. And I mean, she would do this too. It's like, post a nice picture of yourself and a nice caption about praying and living out the faith, etc. And it was all very, very lovely. And then and for a while it was like friends who followed it. They were like, oh, Liza's doing this thing. But I'm really, really, really thankful the Holy Spirit put it on my heart, because I remember spring senior year when we were all applying for jobs.
Right.
One of my best friends was at college was like, Eliza, you need to put this on your resume. Like, it's not nothing. That I'm at that point, it had kind of gained some traction outside of just people I was friends with in real life. And I said, oh, that's a really, really good point. Right after college, I spent a year doing serving on mission in my diocese. We essentially at that time it was like an in-house net ministries, where we would go do what Net did, which was put on retreats for youth groups and schools, but we only did it in our own diocese of Charleston. And I loved doing that. And at that time, my account grew a lot more because I had a lot more time to give to it. We weren't really that busy. It was a really wonderful year of mission. And since I was so steeped in this mission mindset, that extended to what I was posting on Instagram as well, just because it was my life every single day. And it started to really gain a lot of traction that year. And I got my first job in marketing because of it. I mean, the woman who hired me said, oh, I hired you because you have this Instagram account that you grew from nothing, and it's something, and which was very exciting. And I still work in marketing to this day. And I'm really, really thankful. I mean, the job market is very difficult for fresh grads this year and last year, but even before AI, it was really difficult. And I'm really so thankful to the Holy Spirit that was one side blessing that came out of Eliza Writes Things, was being employed right out of college. It's hard to do, and I'm really thankful.
That's amazing. And all that came from a cute little adorable 8th grader who was like, I've got things to say and share. And you did it, and you went out there and you shared, and people responded. I mean, if you could say something to 8th grade Eliza, what would you say to her? What would you say?
Oh, I would tell her that her dreams are going to come true someday. I'm able to share this on the podcast now because I announced it earlier this week that I signed a book contract with Penguin Random House's Catholic imprint to write a book. And
Incredible.
So I know I told you that separately last week, but now the whole world can know.
The whole world can know, because the whole world listens to this podcast, Eliza. So you just told every human. They now know.
I mean, we dream big. We dream big.
Dream big. Dream big. No, that's amazing.
Little 13-year-old Eliza was just like you said, she just like wanted to write things and wanted to put things out there for people. And I wish I could go tell her that it'll, it doesn't happen overnight. It's not like she'll be 14 and, get a book deal, but eventually she'll be in her later 20s and she'll be doing what had been on her heart since she was first learning how to write letters when she was 5 years old.
I love that. I think that's so fabulous. When did you decide that, you know what, I'm going to be the gal that's going to say the stuff that not everybody's saying? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to be, if there's something that bothers me, I'm going to actually own it. Like, I see you as a non-people pleaser on the internet and you get championed for it. You know what I mean? It's not like you're sitting there thinking, okay, I want to make sure I curate and make it perfect and everybody's gonna, because I got to be honest, you have this adorable accent, which I'm sure you're told all the time. You're from Charleston.
Thank you.
You've got the Southern Belle. And then you out on the internet, you're like, oh, hold my beer. You know what I mean? You're like, I love that. And it's not just being a sassy Southerner. You really have things to say, Eliza. And so where did that come from? Were you always a kid that, like, were you always this person that had very strong beliefs and was confident enough to share them with other people?
I get it from my mom and my grandmother, who are both members of the League of Women Voters and really believe in democracy and really prize that. And League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that, like I said, they really believe in democracy and want to inform the lesser informed voters and make sure people can know what is exactly on their ballot and what they can vote for, because to utilize the voice that we are given in this form of government that we live under. As you were talking and asking that, I just had a little flashback to fourth grade Eliza. What she was up to was, I had a little stint. This is so funny, where I played therapy at recess. That's what I was up to.
Oh my gosh, that is so great.
I recruited one of my best friends to like be my co-therapist, and we made a sign, and that's just said like therapy for the fourth grade class. And I went to a little Catholic school, so 20 other kids in my class, and we taped it to this tree, and we would just sit under that tree. And I remember like telling my mom, there's just so much drama and people are being unfair and it's unjust, and I'm gonna try to fix it by being the therapist.
That is so cute.
And people would come talk to us. I mean, I'm sure it was just like, we were not mature and formed enough to be therapists or understand when does like processing something just become gossip. It's, 10-year-olds can't do that.
Right.
But my
40-year-olds can't do that,
there.
Eliza.
Dang it. My heart really was there. And all I wanted was to just like try to make our classroom a peaceful place without whatever drama I thought was going on. And I guess at 27, I'm still up to that. I mean, I'm not a licensed therapist, and I don't hop on the internet trying to be like, I'm just going to be everybody's therapist right now. People can come talk to me. It's okay. But even as a kid, I had that little drive for community and harmony and empathy, which all points to this greater goal of justice. But it's not just about justice for justice's sake. Okay. It's about, like I said, harmony of God's children living in accordance with one another and treating one another as equal human beings, equally loved by Jesus just because they exist. And it's very JP2 kind of stuff that I'm on all the time of like human dignity. And I just am so convicted to the core of my bones that if every single person really understood how loved they are by Jesus unconditionally, and as follows, how Jesus loves every single other person in the world just because of their own existence, then our world would be so different. We would all treat one another with this respect and this dignity and this love that we deserve as equal children of God, equally beloved by the Father. And that really does just drive me every day. And it's worth laying what it's worth laying aside people perhaps thinking ill of me if I'm going to be standing up for these things that the church teaches.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, that's the boundary I try to hold on to, is just saying, you know, human dignity, human dignity, human dignity. If something does not uphold human dignity, whether it comes from the far right or the far left or anywhere else, then it's worth calling out. And we have a Catholic Church that for decades has been extremely vocal and not regarded as something edgy to stand up for the dignity of the preborn, which is so wonderful and important. And I want to see us adopt that same mindset for the dignity of every single human life, preborn and already born as well. And we don't have to cave to whataboutism. We don't have to say, oh, I know things are really tough for immigrants right now, but what about the preborn? Like we have the entirety of Jesus' Sacred Heart, which is huge and infinite in love, to hold all of these injustices against human dignity within. Like there is so much room. There is an infinite amount of room to hold and in compassion and empathy for every human life that is struggling.
Amen.
And we don't have to act like it's one thing or the other. We can give it all to Jesus' Sacred Heart.
I love that. Is there a specific, you know, we're recording this in 2026. So in case everyone in 2040 is there, hello, future. Just kidding.
Because the whole world's going to hear.
Yeah, because the whole world's going to hear. And I wonder what 2040 does. They're probably like, oh, that's cute. Everyone had a podcast. We don't even know what that is anymore because we now just zoom in our eyeballs to each other or something. I don't know. But here we are in 2026. What are some issues that are really close to your heart right now, especially as a Catholic woman? What are a couple that that you bleed for?
I mean, I'm going to mention abortion. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because there's already a lot being said.
There's a lot of voices for that. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes.
I think that's really healthy.
And that's why I will always say the preborn deserve to be defended. I am going to focus on other things as well who also need defense, who I don't see being as defended as much. And again, it's not at the exclusion of the preborn or anybody else. The Sacred Heart of Jesus has infinite love, and we can hold it all together. We can also have separate conversations about different things. And I know you know this. I just have now trained myself to say it. Get these caveats all laid out.
Yeah,
immigration in the United States right now is particularly close to my heart, and I feel especially emboldened by how much our bishops have spoken about it as well, and so thankful to them for issuing this special message on it back in November, and grateful that they have continued to hammer in that message. I mean, as of the day we're recording this, it's still the pinned post at the top of the bishop's Instagram account.
Really?
It's the video version of that special message that they made, where it has a lot of the different bishops reading some of the lines.
Yes.
It's still the pin post at the top.
Yes.
That one is so close to my heart. Just war theory, especially regarding Iran right now, is something I'm holding really close to my heart as well.
What does that mean?
The poor.
Well, tell me more about the just war theory. Can you explain that in a little bit more depth?
Well, the Catechism lays it out for us very in no uncertain and vague terms. And to me personally, it's really easy to see, what is going on, what our president has done with this war doesn't line up with what the Vatican has, or not the Vatican via the Catechism has aligned for us as a just war, a war that is actually fair, a war in which we are justified to uphold and to fight in. And this one just doesn't meet the requirements.
Yeah. It doesn't. And then I cut you off, but then also the poor is what you were going to say that's close to your heart.
Yes, just the poor in general. Even when I was a little kid, it never really sat right with me how they are being. Charleston has probably, I would say, I don't know that it's necessarily more or fewer population rates of those who are sleeping out on the streets compared to other American cities, but it is an American city, and so unlike folks who live in rural areas or more suburbs, My husband and I live in the middle of downtown Charleston, and so we see those who are sleeping out on the streets all the time. And our priest actually said to him, my husband, separately one time, how this is a really beautiful time of our lives living downtown right now, because that proximity forces us to, and it's a gift and a blessing. That proximity calls and invites us to better regard the poor as more fully human, not just as this abstract idea that like we need to throw dollar bills at, but as human beings made in God's image and likeness for us to talk to. And we see them outside of our house and on the streets that we're walking down while we're walking out to dinner or something like that all the time. And my husband is really, really gifted at slowing down, stopping to have a conversation. If he tries really hard to remember to carry cash. If he doesn't have cash, though, he'll try to set up a Venmo, or he'll stay. We walk a lot of places, or he'll stay with this person to continue having a conversation with him, and I'll run home and get cash, and do what we can to try to help and treat them in a way that acknowledges their dignity as human beings made in God's image. Because money helps. Money's really, really important. It's also important to ask those who we encounter who are in poverty their names and talk to them about their own lives and treat them like a normal human being. And this is a topic that is always with us. And Jesus says, you will always have the poor. You won't always have me. And it's not necessarily as flashy as current events happening right now as instigated by our president and across United States presidents and centuries and civilizations. We have had the poor, and so it's not as flashy, but it is so pervasive and close to the heart of God, and so dear to me as well.
I love that. Do you have a specific saint that you walk with while upholding the dignity of the poor? Is there anyone that you look to that you go arm in arm with? Like, I first thought of Saint Forsati, which he doesn't have to be someone that you're connected to, because I feel like, we kind of get, I don't know about you, but we kind of get a little pursued by certain saints. It's interesting how, one saint will mean something to someone and then to the other person, like, oh, I don't even know who that is. Like, but they'll keep showing up in your life. Do you have anybody like that shows up, especially around the poor?
Mary Magdalene, which is funny because we don't necessarily know her as a saint who, I'm sure she helped the poor. She's not like, that's an easy guess, just knowing her heart for Christ.
Yeah.
And I think we can make an educated guess that she experienced poverty herself at some point before her conversion, when she was just in the thick of a lot of struggle anyway. But she's someone who is very, very gritty and real to me in a way that is very comforting to my own heart. And I think it's just because we know that she knows suffering, whether the 7 demons that Jesus drew out of her were sins that he called her out of, or a true demonic possession that she got tangled up in, which likely happened because, not randomly, but because of some hardship that was happening in her life. Either way, we know that at some point she had deep struggle. And it was likely a combination of mental, emotional, spiritual, physical. But I don't think we need to know every single detail about these struggles to know that she is really, really close to those who suffer.
I love that. This is why I wanted to ask, because I would have never put Mary Magdalene, you would think like Mother Teresa, Forsati, people that you knew that were like living with the poor and doing things for the poor. So I love that you're like, okay, this is so you, Eliza, hold my beer. This is what you do. You just kind of come at this different angle, and it's just really fantastic. And that's why I love digging into that beautiful brain. So what are some things, it's really, I'm going to be really, I feel like I can be with you. I mean, we're in my living room right now. We're just hanging out. No big deal.
The living room.
But I'm going to be really honest. Like, if somebody's watching this or listening, they're going to be like, oh, that's cute. Those are 2 white women who are married, who are, Southern, who,
wearing big earrings.
Yeah, wearing big earrings and necklaces, a lot of red, and who are they to know what it is to be an immigrant, what it is about, war, or what it is to be poor. How do you, God, I have like about 12 questions I want to go to after setting that up. I want to ask you so many things. I want to ask you how you respond to that. I mean, you can't help that you're a white woman that lives in Charleston and has this on her heart, but how do you do something about that? How do you use your privilege specifically, or how can someone use their privileges in order to help those three categories? Those are really big categories, Eliza. Like, immigration is not going to be solved today. Iran is not going to be solved today. The poor is not going to be solved today. So do you have any advice to people who are looking at us and judging us, or who are looking at us and saying, I look like them, I don't know what to do, I live in, Dallas, and I can't help. What can I do to help an immigrant? What can I do to help Iran? What can I do to help? You see what I'm saying? What do we say to people who are in privilege, who are not living out those places? How can we help them help? Maybe that's what I want to know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm thinking of another saint friend who is Blessed Franz Jägerstätter. Wait, no, but that's not the right way to pronounce it. A follower of mine who, I said that on an Instagram story, and then a follower of mine who I got to meet in real life, actually, who speaks German, was like, Eliza, she was very, very gracious. So she was like, it's actually Jägerstätter. I think.
It sounds great. I think that sounds spectacular. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was it. I know I'm closer than Jägerstätter though.
Yeah.
With the accent. Jägerstätter with the accent. But I'm obsessed with his story, and he's become a saint stalker. Not in a creepy way, in an exciting way.
In a good way, in a pursuing way.
Saint stalker in an exciting way. He was an Austrian farmer in rural middle of nowhere, Austria, in the 1930s. And he was in his early 30s. He had a wife and 3 precious little girls. And he went to daily mass, and he prayed so much, and he was super, super in love with the heart of Christ, and just spent his days, tilling the land and stewarding the gifts that he was given, and deeply helping the poor as well. And then when the Anschluss came around, he was the only person in his town to vote against it. He pretty much from the beginning saw Hitler's angle for what it was, and Hitler's denouncement of human dignity for what it was. And so he was the only person in his town to vote against it, but they actually scrubbed his vote from history. It looks like the town completely voted for it. And all throughout the years that followed, he and his wife were the only people they knew who ever said anything standing up against Hitler, standing up against the injustices that he was invoking. Even his mom would come over to his house and be like, you need to stop talking about this, or you're going to get in a lot of trouble, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you, etc. And a quote that just gives me chills is, he said, I think he wrote it in a journal or a letter to his wife, that it's enough to just stand up and be counted. It's enough to just stand up and be counted for what you believe in with church teaching, even when literally everyone else except your wife disagree with you.
Wow.
When his own told him, you need to be more quiet about this. His bishop, his bishop, he to his wife, I wonder if our bishop, I was the guy. And so the bishop was trying to really play it down so that he wouldn't get, arrested by Hitler.
Yeah.
But his bishop
wow.
also said, and his bishop would have to think that, because Franz was a stranger to him, than his own parish priest who knew his heart.
Yeah.
You need to, this time, the Archbishop of Vienna, which wasn't his diocese, but, he was still the big guy for Austria as far as church went, was a very vocal Hitler supporter. His name was Cardinal Innitzer, and he personally welcomed Hitler to Vienna. He ordered every church in the Diocese of Vienna to fly a swastika flag on Hitler's birthday one year in the late 1930s.
Wow.
So everywhere Franz looked, he saw people in support of this movement and this rhetoric that was so against human dignity. And Will and I watched a really, really great movie about his biography movie about his life a few weeks ago. And I hadn't read this in the biography I had read about Blessed Franz. I can believe that it is very believable that these were things people probably told him, where throughout the movie, various people in his life, like the mayor was one, some military man was another, were just like, do you really think you're going to change the trajectory of the war just by saying no? So another thing was eventually the Nazi draft came for him. He was able to hold off for a while because he was a farmer, providing that really important, food.
Right.
But then towards the end came for him, and he conscientiously objected to it because he would have had to fight for the Nazis. And he was like, I cannot pledge the oath to Hitler. It wasn't even an option for him to be a medical servant, for him to be a nurse on the battlefield, because even the nurses had to pledge oaths to Hitler. And that was where he drew the line. And so many people throughout the movie were like, you're not going to change the course of the war just by talking against it and refusing the draft. Like, you're not going to change anybody's mind. Nobody agrees with you except your little wife. No, like, this has no consequences for what's going on. And but he knew it was enough that God saw. And he knew it was enough that he was setting this example for his little daughters, for his wife to tell them about someday, because they were too young to understand. I mean, they were toddlers.
Yeah.
He knew it was enough just to be one person to just stand up and be counted, even if he changed nobody's mind. And he didn't change anyone's mind. People wanted him to just, like his mom would say, if you accept the draft, you at least have a chance of coming out alive for your family. But if you object, you will be murdered. He objected. He was sent to the guillotine by the Nazi regime for objecting. And it wasn't until the 1970s when there was at least a little bit of traction in his favor. And I say 70s because in that decade, Austrian nationwide TV made a dirty about his life, favorable. And he, in the 1980s, his parish priest wrote a letter to his wife saying, I hope Franz can forgive me for having led him astray. And he was beatified in 2007. And at 94 years old, his wife was at the beatification in his diocesan church. He was right. 94 years old, her little, really sweet face, and she's wearing this really, really cute hat, and she just looks so, so happy. Because for decades, people in her village still spat at her as she walked by. And apparently, I'm not sure if this is entirely true or not, but I read an account that his mom never forgave her for supporting him, conscientiously objecting. And she just had people who regarded her as an enemy and an embarrassment to their village for decades. I cannot even imagine living that way.
But amazing.
It mattered in the eyes of God. And it's a beautiful gift that now his story is really well known, but he would have done it he had no reason to believe it would ever be well known. He was just a nobody, according to him, nobody farmer in nobody Austria. And it was still enough for God to see. It was still enough for God to see.
And using him today. And I think that's a really good point that you're making, that we don't know, also what you said about, abortion, we all have different passions and missions put on our heart that God, placed there, and talents that go into, into supporting those missions and those passions. You have the gift of writing, okay? And you have the gift of your mother and your grandmother. So you put those things together and you've become this voice for the voiceless, and I'm sure that a lot of people are surprised when they see, who's behind this voice, and it's you. And I love that you are strong in it and and you don't back down, I have to ask, what about if ever you get it wrong? If something, is out there and you side on the side of something, and then, come to find out XYZ, this isn't, whatever. There's a lot of stories coming out right now with immigration and ICE and all sorts of things. There was a story, I'll give an example. There was a story in Houston. This has nothing to do with immigration, the poor, or the war. But there was a story that came out in Houston this week of a teacher who was stabbed in the classroom, and they shut down the school. And come to find out, she actually did the stabbing. She stabbed herself. But before that happened, right, exactly. It's like this crazy story. But before that happened, people went off, and they were publicly telling it just snowballed because we have a stabbing at a high school, and that everybody was saying it was a student and it was this, it was that. And now come to find out it's this teacher who was she's obviously not okay in the head, and she stabbed herself and said it was a student and did all this stuff. What do you do? Because you are talking about risky political, things on the fray. What do you do when you find out that maybe the information that you shared wasn't what you thought it was? Like, has that ever happened to you before? How do you handle that? Have you had to handle that? And what does that look like?
A story came out 2 days ago about a meeting between officials at the Pentagon and Christophe Pierre while he was still Apostolic Nuncio and for the United States and the Vatican, that was really, really contentious. And I shared a whole post about this one independent journalism's account of things that were said in the meeting that were very, very, very scary. And since then, over the course of yesterday, a lot more people weighed in. The Pentagon is completely cordial, and the U.S. ambassador to the Holy See said it was completely cordial as well, and even specifically quoted, or says he quoted Cardinal Pierre. The Vatican at first did not confirm that the meeting took place, but meant on the nature of the language that was used. But last night, the Pillar Catholic news site, which is super, super repeatable, was able to talk to some people who were anonymous, who said it was contentious, but I believe I remember that didn't confirm or deny some of this that was used, that this first journalism site who reported on it said was used. NBC Chicago also verified from someone at the Vatican that the meeting was tense and contentious. And then last night, that essentially said the meeting took place, and they didn't clarify what the nature of the language was, but they said the meeting took place, and certain media's illustrations of it, descriptions of it, do not match reality. So it's still unclear exactly what was said. The U.S. government claims it was completely cordial. Vatican, various other independent outlets, including the Pillar, say that anonymous Vatican sources who were sharing with them under the condition of anonymity, that it was contentious and at times tense, even at times felt like bullying, which is still very serious. And the Vatican has so far, they've just said some of what the media is saying is untrue, but didn't necessarily say, as far as I could see and understand, didn't necessarily say which was exactly true, which was exactly untrue. Mm-hmm. And as this was all unfolding yesterday, I just kept growing more and more uncomfortable of keeping my post up the way it was, because I was just like, wow, this is just really messy. This has gotten messier with people. This has also gotten more confusing. Like, I was seeing people in my comments being like, oh, it wasn't contentious. The Pentagon said it wasn't. And in my heart, I was like, well, we don't need to believe everything that the government says. And that's something that people have been saying for decades and decades and decades across different presidents, across different political parties being in power. And with the Vatican publicly not commenting on exactly the language that was used, but according to sources who I do really put faith in the pillar, and I think it's okay to do so from the journalism I've seen coming from them for many, many years, that it was contentious. I was just like, I feel like I can't in good faith keep this up the way it is. It's just a lot more muddy and confusing now. And so I took it down, except for a few slides at the end that were mostly, they weren't really talking about the actual event. They were talking about the nature of, do we put our political leaning above our identity as Catholics? Do we look for the fruits of the Spirit and leaders, et cetera, et cetera? And so I kept those slides to the post, but I deleted the other slides talking about the exact situation because I was like, again, this is just really muddy and confusing. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to lead more people to confusion. Mm-hmm. But it was, and I am embarrassed that I spoke quickly, and I wish I had waited even 24 hours. And it was a learning moment because I remember 2 nights ago, as I was watching the post upload, a little voice in my head was like, hey, you should wait until the pillar reports on it. And I was like, no, independent media is fine. I want to be able to get this out. I just want to be able to get this out. I was also just tired, and I really just wanted to post that day because I also really wanted to post about the other conversation I addressed of, what happened? What does it look like when we have a leader who does not embody the fruits of the Spirit? What does it look like when we dive so deep into identity politics that our Catholic identity takes the wayside? And I certainly could have posted that without also posting about this other situation that ended up getting really muddy. And so it was a learning moment of the consequences of being too hasty. And I'm glad I learned it young. And I wish fewer people had ultimately seen it, but what is done is done. And I know I'm confident knowing I've made the best choice I can. Like, I also updated the caption to reflect, this is exactly what we know from these sources so far. And so I know I've done the best I can, and my best choice is to move on and learn from my mistake.
Yeah. No, absolutely. How does this play into influencer culture, like especially the Catholic influencer culture? What are your thoughts on it? Do you think that, we should have as many Catholic influencers that we do, everybody with a microphone, or do you think that, do you have a hard time with it? Are you pro? What are your thoughts on influence, like Catholic influencer culture?
There are so many. There are so many more than there used to be when I first started 6 years ago. I've especially been seeing a lot of younger ones who are on the older cusp of Gen Alpha. I'm on the older cusp of Gen Z, and they're on literally 19. And I'm glad that they're addressing their own generation. I think it's really valuable to have ambassadors, if you will, of one's own generation who are speaking truth and speaking life. And I'm really excited. I'm particularly excited about that with my book. One generation is kind of only just getting old enough to be taken seriously to publish books. And so it's exciting to be able to publish a book as someone who is Gen Z, speaking to everyone, but I know Gen Z readers will be like, this, it's so great to be able to hear from someone who is my own age and really gets me in that way. I mean, I think the best we can do is, those of us who are Catholic content creators and have public platforms, is cover ourselves in accountability. My spiritual director, whom I've had since well before I started my account, knows about what I'm up to, and I met with her today, and it's always great. And my priest knows about what I'm up to. And when my bishop came to make a visit back in November, I shared with him more about what I'm up to, and he was like, great. And that kind of oversight can be very, very valuable to make sure that we, at the very least, are legit in walking the walk, that my priest can verify she's here every Sunday singing in the back unless she's on vacation. And she leads small group for the middle and high school girls at our church, and the parents really trust her, and she's safeguard trained at that. Not that you need
Yeah.
well, I was about to say not that you need safeguarding for the internet, but you do need
You
safeguarding for the
do.
internet. And
You
it's for that
do.
reason that I don't DM with teenagers
Yep.
if someone tells me they're a teenager.
Totally.
It's so cute. These teenage girls will be like, I'm in high school and I really like what you're doing and do you have advice? And I read them and they're really, really sweet. And I'm sad to not respond, but I know that that's the best choice for safeguarding.
Sure. Yeah.
So that accountability is important and so critical and important. And having friends who are also bloggers we can walk alongside has been really helpful for me too. I was privileged to have Mackenzie Hunter and another one of our friends, Mary Harper, come visit me back at the end of February. And we spent so much time. We talked about a lot of things, but we also hashed out a lot about our hopes and dreams and fears and struggles with speaking very publicly about things in the Catholic space. And even my husband, who is so up close and personal with all that I'm up to, still doesn't understand what it's like to do it personally. And so it's really refreshing to talk to girls who know my heart really well and have my best interest at heart too, and love me as a friend, love me as a daughter of God, who also understand exactly what this is like.
I love that. I want to ask you, even though I know that how long have you been married? You've been married
almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years. So you're still, you're right out of that honeymoon phase. Or newlywed phase. Newlywed is 2 years. So, you're, look at you. You're like hardcore now, which is great. And I know you don't have little ones of your own yet, but with your knowledge and with your spunk and grit, what would you say to moms right now that want to empower their kids to be more social focused, to be more, works of mercy, social justice, political? What would you do? How do you plan to form your family so that they also have an interest in these things and that they're brave enough to stand, for these important topics?
Oh, I that's a sweet question. Thank you. I think about my own parents who were and every parent has their shortcomings and their strengths. And one of their strengths was being so natural in empowering my sister and I to form our own voices and take them for ourselves and just put them out there. They weren't parents who were children should be seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. They were, and they also didn't let us walk all over them.
Yeah.
There were boundaries, and sometimes we had to just be quiet. But they really challenged us to think carefully and critically about what we think and what we believe, as informed by the teachings of the church, as informed by just baseline do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and there's no greater love than to lay down your life for a friend. Mm-hmm. They really helped. They in our home fostered a family in which that could be safely explored with low consequences, so that if we got something wrong, it was corrected and we didn't face really, really dire consequences for doing that. They didn't shame us for saying something that wasn't really a correct opinion, a healthy and in line with the church opinion, if we were just trying to, being little girls, experimenting with how does church teaching fit and the teachings of Jesus fit in life right now. And at fourth grade therapy,
I love it.
Even back then, that was a great example actually of really low consequences experimenting with what does it look like to take what Jesus teaches us and live it right here and right now. And I'm thankful for my little Catholic school for just kind of letting me do that, and
I love that.
Not being weird about it.
No, I love that. So you were empowered to have your own voice.
And I hope to do the same for my own kids too, to give them that environment in which they can push on the boundaries and explore and figure it out without getting detrimentally hurt or something, and then empower them to use their voice to stand up for what is good.
I love that. And you'll be a great example to them for sure. We are sadly at the end of our hangout time in the living room. I'm so sad. You were just so lovely. I could hang out with you all day, my friend. And I'm so glad that you're new in my life and I'll get to know you more because you're just fabulous. But at the end of every episode, I ask my guests to share a way that we can be praying for them. So no matter when somebody's listening to this recording, that they can fill you with prayer. So how can we pray for you, Eliza?
That's right, because God knows no space or time, and so neither do our prayers.
I love it. Thank you.
Exactly.
Eliza gets it.
I would love to be covered in prayers as I finish up my book manuscript.
Yeah.
I'm on my deadline, and I've been telling, I don't like this. I've started calling it book jail, which I don't like that I do that. But book jail means I don't see my friends very much, and I sit in our office room and write my book after I get home from work and on the weekends. But that has a negative connotation. It's a privilege and a joy to write a book. And so I was like, maybe I should call it Book Jane Austen Mansion. Like, I'm locked in, like women in the Regency era, they didn't really leave home a lot.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But their homes were really nice.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one. I like that.
So, Book Mansion.
Book
it's
Mansion.
nice. I'm locked in there, but it is a really nice place to be, and it's a privilege.
I love that.
It's a privilege to write a book, and it's my dream.
Yeah.
But I really need a lot of prayer to do so.
Okay, we can do that. Friend, thank you so much for your time and for your wisdom and for all that you're putting out on the internet. I want everybody to come and follow you because you're just spectacular. But thank you. Big hugs and kisses from Texas.
Thank you so much, Liv. I really appreciate it. Thank you for having me.